Greetings, everyone. Pulp Fiction. No, I'm not talking about the Quentin Tarantino film. I'm talking about the literary genre, which enjoyed considerable popularity throughout the 70s all the way through to the early 2000s. My sort of gateway to the world of Pulp Fiction was, well, you got all the romance novels and stuff, but, you know, while those entertained the bored housewives of the world, there was also other Pulp Fiction geared towards the manliest of manly men. Yes, the so-called men's adventure Pulp Fiction. I mean, we had lots from the early days of the pulp magazines, like the mystery magazines and action magazines from the 30s and 40s, but in later decades, they became not so much magazine-focused, but paperback novel-focused. And there was one company in particular, Gold Eagle Books, which published a whole bunch of these men's adventure novels. And generally speaking, they were fairly straightforward action-adventure fare, very light, fast, fun reads, usually featuring rugged, muscular heroes who were ex-military, very adept at different forms of weaponry and guerrilla warfare and stuff like that. So they were fun. My gateway to them was Mack Bolan, the Executioner. So the first I'd ever heard of these was when I saw a couple of the Mack Bolan books in the selection of random novels in my high school, actually. And there was just something about them, like the cover, the description. I never actually read them at the time, but they were intriguing to me. There was something about them that was different from your usual kind of action-adventure fare. So up until that time, my primary exposure to action-adventure novels was the kind of stuff my parents read. But the stuff they read was more kind of highbrow, things like Robert Ludlum and John le Carré and Clive Cussler and stuff like that. So whatever this Mack Bolan series was seemed quite different than the usual fare that I had seen. More just kind of straight-up action-adventure without all the political stuff so much and espionage and whatnot. More just, you know, rescue missions or, you know, secret missions or, you know, infiltration missions, things like that. The other thing that was interesting to me was that, I don't remember specifically which books they were, but they were numbered, indicating that they were a series. Now, of course, I was collecting comic books at the time, so that was something that caught my eye. So I thought, oh, there's like a lot of these, and they were up around like 100 something at the time, I think, so there were a lot of them. Now, years later, I did actually pick up several of the Mack Bolan novels. They actually did reprints of the original books that were written by the original creator, Don Pendleton. He wrote the first 38 books and then signed the series over to Gold Eagle to continue it under their stable of ghostwriters. So, and it carried on for quite some time, actually. I think they did over 300 Mack Bolan books and 3 or 4 spin-off series from it as well. So it was massive. This thing just was a juggernaut that could not be stopped. Now, there had been talk for many years of doing a movie based on Mack Bolan, but alas, that never happened. Although the legacy does live on in kind of sideways fashion in that a Marvel Comics character you may have heard of called The Punisher was actually very heavily inspired by Mack Bolan and in fact shares an almost identical origin story. So if you like The Punisher, you'll probably like Mack Bolan. But we're not here to talk about Mack Bolan. That was just my gateway into Pulp Fiction. What I have today is a trio of movies that kind of celebrate the Pulp Fiction genre, one of which is an adaptation of a series that Gold Eagle did publish alongside the Mack Bolan Executioner novels, and another that is basically just a huge love letter to action movie tropes from the 80s. So let's check them out. Pulp action movies, today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. So first up, we have an interesting one, which was essentially inspired by the Pulps, but is not a direct adaptation of any of them. Although, I did take some delight in hearing Mack Bolan name-dropped in one of the opening scenes. We have Jake Speed. Yes. So Jake Speed is actually not one of the characters that was in the Gold Eagle books, but was heavily inspired by them. Essentially, this movie is a big love letter to the Pulps. It's absolutely wonderful. It's kind of a hidden gem, I think. I always really liked it as a kid. And I got to admit, I was a little excited when I heard Mack Bolan name drop. There's a scene at the beginning when I'll read the back to you in a sec to give you the lowdown on the plot. But basically, it involves a kidnapping plot, and they're trying to figure out who, if anyone, can help them to retrieve the person who was kidnapped. And the grandfather character, who is a huge fan of the Pulps, comes out and says, "Oh, well, you know, maybe you want to go with Remo Williams or maybe Mack Bolan, but actually, I think Jake Speed would probably be a good fit for this mission." And everyone's thinking, like, what the hell are you talking about, Grandpa? These are book characters. It's like, how's a character from a book going to help them get this person back? And, well, the idea is that the Pulp stories are not just characters in a book, but they're actually real people out there doing missions, and they have writers that follow them around and chronicle their adventures. So I guess that means that Don Pendleton was tagging along with Mack Bolan back in the day, chronicling his exploits. So this kind of plays around with that. It's really a very early example of like a meta story that's kind of self-referential to the genre that it's both exploring, parodying, and homaging. So let's take a quick look at the back here, and I'll just give you the description here, just so you can get a little idea of what it's about and what the whole idea here is. More than a myth, less than a legend, and a bit too big for his boots. When her sister is taken by a gang of white slavers, Margaret, Karen Coppins from Troop Beverly Hills, knows she needs a hero with a difference to bring her home. Enter Jake Speed, Wayne Crawford, Barracuda, who also co-wrote it, by the way, leaping from the pages of pulp thriller novels and into the real world. With Margaret and his trusty sidekick Desmond Floyd, played by Dennis Christopher from Chariots of Fire, who reminds me a lot of Joel Grey, funny enough. Jake arrives hot on the heels of the kidnappers in a southern African country gripped by civil war. But it soon turns out Jake got more than he bargained for when he discovers that the ringleader of the slavers is none other than his own arch-nemesis, the wicked, criminally insane Sid, played by John Hurt from Alien and the Osterman Weekend. A ripe slice of 80s action cheese in the tradition of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Romancing the Stone, Jake Speed has it all. Romance, death-defying stunts, spellbinding scenery shot on location in Zimbabwe, and best of all, a wickedly off-the-wall performance by the late John Hurt, proving the old adage that a hero is nothing without a worthy foe. So, yeah, actually, this may very well be the first thing I ever saw John Hurt in as well. And it's quite fun seeing him playing this just absolutely over-the-top villain character. He just devours the scenery in every scene he's in. He was clearly having a blast. And, yeah, that's a lot of fun. So let's just take a quick peek at the extras here. Quite a lot, as there usually is with Arrow releases. So we have a brand new 2K restoration of the film from the original 35mm interpositive. High definition presentation. The original lossless mono audio. Optional English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing. And here we have actual extras. Paperback Wishes, Cinematic Dreams, a new interview with co-writer, producer, director Andrew Lane. The Hard Way Reads Better, a new interview with producer William Fay. And Reversible Sleeve, featuring original and newly commissioned artwork by Graham Humphreys. So yeah, if you like 80s action movies, you like pulp novels, and you want to see John Hurt chewing up the scenery as the bad guy, you really can't go wrong with Jake Speed. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty innocent fun, actually, as far as like action movies go. I think it was PG. I don't see a rating. Yeah, it was rated PG originally. You know, it's not one of those sneaky 80s PGs. It's like suddenly there's boobs everywhere, or someone drops an F-bomb. No, it's nothing like that. It's actually pretty light and fun, and I like it a lot. I was really delighted to find out that Arrow had put out this wonderful special edition of it. I'll just give you a quick little look here. So we actually do have a booklet with it. I'm not going to bother doing super close-ups of it, but wonderful, a wonderful booklet that basically gives you all kinds of not just behind-the-scenes info about the movie, but also kind of about the time when it came out and how it kind of connects to a lot of other Indiana Jones-esque movies at the time. A lot of fun. And then on the inside, we actually have the original movie poster on the reversible cover. I don't know if this originally had a hard box or a slipcover or anything like that. I'm guessing it probably had a slipcover when it originally came out, but alas, no slipcover this time around. Yeah, kind of a sad note, nothing from Wayne Crawford, Jake Speed himself, because he actually passed away at the not very old age of 69 back in 2016. But his legacy will always live on. So, if this was not an actual pulp hero, but more of an homage to pulp heroes, did we ever get any movies based on any of the actual pulp heroes? Well, yes. We got one. We have Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Now this was based on Gold Eagle's other long-running, incredibly successful series, one called The Destroyer. And Remo Williams was the main character in The Destroyer. Now, while the Mack Bolan books were more kind of, you know, deadly serious, very little humor in them, all about getting the job done and revenge, vengeance, whatever, Remo Williams was a very different kind of tone. There was a lot more humor in the Destroyer novels, and a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, a little lighter tone, but still pulling no punches when it came to the action. So it's pretty exciting that we got at least something of the pulps adapted for the screen. I'm really surprised, honestly, that they never did a Mack Bolan movie, because it was easily their biggest title. But The Destroyer was a pretty close second, and it ran for a good long while as well. So this is just a nice little addition from Kino Lorber. Let's take a quick look at the back here, and we'll see what all we've got. Brace yourself for hilarious, action-packed adventure. When a street-smart NYPD cop, Fred Ward from Tremors, regains consciousness after a bizarre mugging, he has a new face and a new identity. Now he's Remo Williams, the #1 recruit of a top-secret organization, and he's toppling evil at every turn, even atop the Statue of Liberty, in this 80s action comedy classic. Trained by a quirky martial arts master, played by, Joel Grey, played by Joel Grey from Cabaret, to dodge bullets, brave terrifying heights, and thwart attackers with his bare hands, Remo becomes the ultimate criminal exterminator. But when he faces off against a corrupt millionaire and his army of henchmen, the real adventure begins. Helmed by Guy Hamilton, the outstanding director of Funeral in Berlin, Force 10 from Navarone, The Mirror Cracked, Evil Under the Sun, and 4 James Bond classics, including Goldfinger and Live and Let Die, Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins features stellar support from Wilford Brimley, Hard Target, J.A. Preston, Body Heat, George Coe, The Entity, and Kate Mulgrew, Captain Catherine Janeway of TV's Star Trek Voyager. Well, yeah, that's a hell of a pedigree, doing this movie, wouldn't you say? I mean, Guy Hamilton, who directed some of the greatest James Bond movies ever, at the helm for this. We got Fred Ward, who was always a delight. Joel Grey, who was a massive star on Broadway and did a lot of film and television as well. I'll always remember his appearance on The Muppet Show. The main thing I remember him in was a Christmas special, which was an adaptation of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, where he played a clockmaker. Quite fun. And Kate Mulgrew, many years before taking the helm in USS Voyager. So let's just take a quick look at the extras. We have audio commentary by producer Larry Spiegel and co-producer Judy Goldstein. Created The Destroyer, writing Remo Williams featurette. Unarmed and Dangerous, producing Remo Williams featurette. Secrets of Sinanju, training Remo Williams featurette. Balance of Power, designing Remo Williams featurette. Assassin's Tune, composing Remo Williams featurette, and radio spot and theatrical trailer. So I gather the idea here was if the movie had been successful enough, they would have done further installments. But alas, this is the only one we got. I remember enjoying this one quite a bit. I haven't watched it since I got the Blu-ray, but I do remember it fairly well from when I was a kid, and I remember liking it quite a bit. My dad liked it as well. Yeah, he really enjoyed the character that Joel Grey plays, the martial arts master who trains him. So, next up, last but most certainly not least, we have what many consider to be the ultimate in meta films, lampooning and, being something of a love letter to action movies, specifically action movies of the 80s and early 90s. We have Arnold Schwarzenegger basically making fun of himself in The Last Action Hero. Yeah. This was so ahead of its time, I have to say. This came out in 1993, and I remember at the time it did not get very well reviewed. In subsequent years, it's gained more respect and more of a following, but and deeper appreciation for what it is. But in 1993, I think people just weren't ready for that kind of, self-referential, sly wink, meta kind of story. And but really, in revisiting it years later, you can really see just how brilliant it actually is and what a perfect parody it is of action movie tropes up to that point. Because by 1993, a lot of those tropes, that started with Rambo and the Chuck Norris movies and everything, were very well established and had been milked to death across countless action movies. And even Arnold Schwarzenegger himself had, done a lot of the same kind of movies for a while, and had his catchphrase, "I'll be back." He even makes fun of that in the movie. And it's just wonderful. I can't wait to revisit this. I remember seeing it back when it was fairly new. And, it just stuck with me, honestly. Like, I still remember it pretty vividly from back when I originally saw it in the VHS days. So, we did get a slipcover with this. As you can see, quite nice. Just slide it out. And, of course, you probably noticed this one is in 4K. So we got lovely 4K Arnie here. And there's the back. So let's just take a little peek at what the extras are. So this was directed by John McTiernan, who of course did the original Die Hard. Come on, if anybody knows action, it's the Die Hard guy. So special features on 4K Ultra HD. We got commentary with director John McTiernan, deleted and alternate scenes, an alternate ending, Big Gun music video by AC/DC, an original vintage behind-the-scenes featurette, and the original theatrical teaser. So, there you go. We'll just put it back in the slipcover here. Yes, and as you can see, compatible with the PS5. Great. I feel like that came out fairly early in the PS5's lifespan. So we'll just take a look at all three there. So there we go. A nice trio of pulpy action movies, two of which are quite literally based on the pulp fiction literary genre that enjoyed so much success, especially in the 80s and 90s, and one of the best love letters to and parodies of 80s and 90s action movies, The Last Action Hero, in glorious 4K. Alrighty folks, well that is it from me to you for now. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Until then, thanks for watching, and sayonara.